Most people move through life carrying silent doubts about who they are, and without realizing it, they begin to build their entire identity on beliefs that never truly belong to them. From early childhood, each person absorbs the opinions, judgments, and expectations of the world around them. Parents, teachers, friends, culture, and social pressure whisper certain ideas about what it means to be good enough, successful, lovable, or worthy. Over time, these ideas sink deep into the subconscious, shaping the way a person sees themselves long before they are old enough to question anything. These beliefs eventually feel like absolute truths, even though they are often nothing more than illusions formed from misunderstandings or fear. As people grow older, they start acting according to these invisible beliefs without ever recognizing how much power they give them. They choose careers based on what others admire instead of what they truly want. They form relationships based on a desire to feel valuable rather than a desire to be authentic. They hide their emotions because somewhere along the way they were taught that vulnerability makes them weak. Day after day, they carry the weight of an identity that was never consciously chosen. In this way, the lies continue to gain strength and become a part of the inner voice that speaks every time they make a decision or confront a challenge. These lies often appear harmless on the surface, but they slowly create an inner conflict that eats away at confidence and clarity. A person may feel like they are constantly chasing something or running from something, yet never fully understanding what it is. They begin to forget who they were before they learn to doubt themselves. Instead of living from their natural energy and intuition, they follow the script that was handed to them. This script tells them how to behave, how to think, what they deserve, and what they should fear. It convinces them that they must fit into a shape that was never designed for their soul. But here is the truth that most people miss. These beliefs are not permanent. They are not facts carved into stone. They are simply stories that the mind accepted at a moment when it felt too young, too pressured, or too unprotected to question anything. The moment you begin to notice these stories is the moment you regain the power to rewrite them. Awakening begins not with dramatic transformation, but with gentle awareness. It happens when you stop and ask yourself whether the thoughts you repeat every day truly reflect who you are, or whether they reflect who you were told to be. When you start questioning these inherited beliefs, something incredible happens. A space opens within you, a space where your real self begins to breathe again. You start to see that most of the limitations you feel were never yours. You begin to realize that identity is not a cage but a choice. It is in this moment that transformation becomes possible. You are no longer defined by the lies you absorb, but by the truth you are finally ready to discover. The first lie that nearly every human being carries within themselves is the belief that they are not enough. It is subtle, it is quiet, and it is powerful. This lie shows up in the way people compare themselves to others, in the way they doubt their abilities, and in the way they shrink when they should stand tall. It begins early in life, often before a person even understands the meaning of self-worth. A single criticism, a disappointing moment, or an unkind comment can plant a seed of insecurity that grows silently for years. As children, people naturally want to feel loved, seen, and appreciated. When they believe that they must act a certain way to receive approval, they begin to internalize the idea that they are not enough just as they are. Maybe they were told they should be quieter, or smarter, or stronger. Maybe they were compared to a sibling or a friend. Maybe they simply felt unnoticed during moments when they needed comfort. These experiences do not seem dramatic at the time, but they echo inside the heart long after the moment has passed. Slowly, a person begins to believe that something is missing within them. This lie continues to follow people into adulthood. It influences the way they speak, the way they think, and the way they treat themselves. They look at others and assume everyone else is more capable, more confident, or more deserving. They begin to measure their worth by achievements, appearance, or external approval. Whenever they fall short of their own impossible expectations, they use it as proof that the lie is true. The inner voice repeats the same message again and again. You are not enough. You must do more. You must be more. This belief becomes a constant pressure, pushing them to hide their flaws and pretend to be perfect. But the truth is that this lie was never a reflection of reality. It is a reflection of fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being vulnerable. People believe they must earn their value through performance or perfection. But real worth has never depended on either. Every person carries a unique combination of experience, creativity, emotion, and perspective that no one else can replicate. The world does not need you to be better than others. It needs you to be fully yourself. When a person starts to question the belief that they are not enough, things begin to shift. They notice how this lie has shaped their decisions. They realize how many opportunities they avoided because they felt unworthy. They understand how often they settled for less because they believed they did not deserve more. This awareness becomes the first step toward freedom. The moment you recognize this belief as a lie, it loses its power. You begin to see that worthiness is not something you must chase. It is something you already possess. You were never created to be a copy of anyone else. Your value lies in your individuality, your growth, your honesty, and your ability to express who you truly are. When you release the lie that you are not enough, you open the door to living with confidence, compassion, and authenticity. You stop trying to prove your value and you start living from it. The second lie that shapes the lives of millions of people is the belief that they must be perfect in order to be loved. This belief hides itself behind the desire to please others, the pressure to always appear strong, and the fear of showing anything that might be judged as weakness. It convinces a person that love is something fragile, something that can be lost the moment they reveal their imperfections. Because of this, people learn to present a carefully edited version of themselves to the world, hoping it will earn them acceptance. This lie often begins in childhood, when love feels conditional. A child might receive praise only when they behave well, achieve something, or meet certain expectations. They may learn that mistakes lead to disappointment, that emotions invite criticism, or that honesty sometimes brings punishment. Even if parents or caregivers never intended to create this belief, small moments can send powerful messages. A child hears a tone of frustration, sees a frown, or feels ignored when they most need comfort, and their mind forms the conclusion that love must be earned through perfection. As people grow older, this belief grows with them. They learn to hide their sadness, to mask their doubts, and to pretend everything is fine even when their heart feels heavy. They fear that if someone sees the real them, with all their flaws and confusion, they will be rejected or judged. So they build emotional walls, not to keep others out, but to keep love from slipping away. In relationships, they struggle to express their true feelings, believing vulnerability might push the other person away. In friendships, they act cheerful even when they are hurting. In their careers, they push themselves to the edge because they believe mistakes make them unworthy. This constant pressure slowly turns into exhaustion. Trying to be perfect steals joy, creativity, and authenticity. It makes a person feel like they are always performing, always pretending, always managing an image instead of living their truth. The tragedy is that perfection becomes a shield that blocks the very connection they desperately want. Love cannot enter a heart that is busy hiding. Real intimacy cannot grow when someone is constantly protecting themselves from being seen. The truth is very different from the lie. Love has never depended on perfection. Genuine love is not impressed by flawless behavior. It is drawn to honesty, openness, and presence. Real love does not demand that you erase your flaws. It invites you to share them. It does not crumble when you make mistakes. It deepens when you learn together. The people who truly care for you do not love you because you are perfect. They love you because you are real, human, and able to connect from the heart. When a person finally questions this belief, something profound begins to happen. They notice how often they apologize for simply being themselves. They recognize how frequently they hold back their truth to avoid conflict or judgment. They see how much emotional energy they have spent trying to be what others want instead of who they are. This awareness creates space for transformation. For the first time, they can breathe freely without the constant fear of disappointing someone. Letting go of the lie of perfection does not mean abandoning growth. It means embracing a kind of growth that is fueled by authenticity rather than fear. It means understanding that love expands through honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to be seen. When you finally give yourself permission to be imperfect, you open the door to relationships that are deeper, healthier, and far more beautiful than anything perfection could ever create. The third lie that quietly controls the way people live is the belief that their past defines their future. This belief is deeply rooted in human psychology because the mind naturally uses memories to predict what will happen next. If someone has failed before, their mind tells them they will fail again. If they were hurt in the past, their mind warns them that opening up will only bring more pain. If they have made mistakes, they begin to believe those mistakes limit who they can become. The past becomes a story that repeats itself not because it must continue, but because the person unknowingly keeps feeding it with fear, guilt, or regret. Many people carry emotional wounds that they have never fully processed. A moment of disappointment in childhood, a betrayal in a relationship, a failure that felt too heavy to forget, or a choice they wish they had never made. These experiences shape their inner world, creating beliefs about themselves and about life. Over time, these beliefs solidify into identity. Someone who was once told they were not good enough starts to see themselves as permanently limited. Someone who once lost trust begins to believe deep connections are unsafe. Someone who once made a poor decision begins to see themselves as unworthy of success or happiness. Without realizing it, they take isolated moments from their past and turn them into lifelong definitions. But the truth is that the past was never meant to be a prison. It was meant to be a teacher. Every experience holds a lesson, but once the lesson is learned, the story no longer needs to hold power. The problem arises when people confuse learning with living. They keep reliving memories, replaying regrets, and repeating emotions that should have been released long ago. This creates a cycle in which the past continues to shape the present, not because it is stronger, but because it has not been questioned. When a person begins to challenge the belief that their past determines their future, a doorway opens. They start seeing that the patterns they repeat are not destiny. They are simply habits of thought and emotion. These habits can be changed. They begin to understand that the future is not built from the past. It is built from the choices made in this moment. The past may explain how someone learned to think, but it does not dictate what they are capable of becoming. This shift in awareness is powerful. A person who once felt trapped realizes they are free to change direction. They understand that healing is possible, growth is possible, and transformation is possible. They recognize that every moment of life is an invitation to rewrite their story. They can choose new beliefs, new actions, and new ways of seeing themselves. The truth is that you are never limited by what has happened to you. You are shaped by how you respond to it. You are defined not by the mistakes you made, but by the wisdom you gained. You are guided not by past failures, but by the resilience you developed. When you release the lie that your past controls your future, you step into a life where possibility becomes real again. You rediscover your ability to create, to evolve, and to become the person you were always capable of being.